Hello, I'm Jamie Fullerton, and this is my new podcast, Keep Going, an unexpected travel podcast. In each episode, I'm going to tell an on-the-ground travel story that's in some way, yes, unexpected. Initially, this podcast is going to come out every 2 weeks, so subscribe if you want to listen to the episodes when they're released. I'm starting with my trip to the Indigenous Boruca village in Costa Rica. Every new year, the village holds a kind of festival of rituals called the Dance of the Little Devils. Boruca is a forest village. It's deep in the Borucan mountains, but the village's influence can be seen all over Costa Rica. The garish wooden devil and animal masks sold in gift shops around the country, nestled among sloth toys and other tat, derive from Boruca village. These souvenir masks are descendants of the masks Borucan warriors wore hundreds of years ago when they fought against Spanish colonisers. And each new year, to celebrate these warrior ancestors, the villagers put on masks or bull costumes, drink enormous amounts of booze, and perform their rituals. This is episode 1, The Dance of the Little Devils. There's one local bus that goes to Boruca village, crunching over steep gravel roads cut into the forest of the Borucan mountains. When we climbed some really steep roads, I thought the rickety bus's engine might give out and we'd roll back down the mountain. But we made it to the village. A house with pink pastel-coloured walls overlooked the dusty village square. On the terrace, a man wearing a big, bulky bull costume was running around. He was surrounded by masked men. The bull costume was basically a load of brown sacks slung over a wooden frame, and the frame was slung over the man's head and torso, so I could only see his legs and feet, which were covered by blue jeans and knock-off New Balance shoes. At the front of the bull costume was a wooden mask depicting a bull's face, with real bull horns poking out of its forehead. Men in big wooden masks and colourful shawls, all holding wooden staffs, were chasing the bull around in circles. There were snarling jaguar faces, electric blue-faced warriors, devils with huge teeth and harpooning eyes. It was the dance of the little devils. The men in masks were the devils. They represented the indigenous Borucan warriors who fought against Spanish colonisers 500 years ago. The Spaniards called the Borucans devils as a slur, but the villagers embraced the name. The bull costume represented the Spaniards. Occasionally, a devil blew a fanfare out of a large conch shell. On the terrace, I met Jose, a young man from Boruca who now lives in Costa Rica's capital city, San Jose.
Here, we're at my grandma's house, and I was born here 23 years ago, here in the center of the community.
Boruca is really remote. I couldn't get phone signal there, and the village only got electricity in the 1980s. There aren't many job prospects there beyond farming and ad hoc tourism. Jose now lives and works in the capital, but returns to the village for the New Year celebrations.
This room, I was born here.
That's where I'm staying.
Yeah, and it's very fun.
Jose said that when he was a child growing up in Boruca, he and his friends used to make their own masks to try and be like the grown-up devils.
The ones who used this mask were the leaders of the community, seen as important people with a great knowledge. So that's why they were like spirits.
Spain colonized Costa Rica in the 16th century. Boruca is one of the country's 8 indigenous groups, and according to legend, the Borucan warriors put up a hell of a fight against the colonizers.
For example, we are the warriors, Calgrudo, and we fight against the Spanish people.
The Dance of the Little Devils has taken place every new year for hundreds of years, keeping the memory of the Borucans' fighting spirit alive.
It is said that the Borucans used this mask to intimidate and also to fight them. So it was In that way, it looked like scary for them to see this mask with those terrifying figures or designs.
The Borucan warriors used to wear simple wooden masks to scare the Spanish. In the 1990s, a villager named Ismael Gonzalez Lazaro, known as Don Ismael, decided to properly revive the mask tradition. He started a mask-making school in Boruca and got children in the village making more elaborately painted masks out of balsa wood.
Because he started a school with kids, this was called Rabru. It's a native word. It's the name of an insect. It's like a beetle who cuts wood. So it's very interesting because there's like a association, right, of this insect that cut wood, and we cut the wood to make the mask. So it's very interesting.
Don Ismael died in 2014, and his mask school closed down years ago. But still, all over the village, I heard the gentle scrape of chisel on balsa wood.
Is there any risk of this skill dying out in the village, or is it still very strong and lots of people learning?
It's still very strong because these people who work with this metal, who were part of the Rabru school, they learn a lot and they taught the new generations a lot. They have their own workshops, families who create masks. People still, or the kids in general, are still learning about this.
Today, the villagers' masks are far more vibrant and colourful than their ancestors' simple warrior masks. Jose said this was because tourists like the colours.
Do you think it's a good or a bad thing that the masks have changed because of the tourist demand?
It's good for commercial to sell them, but I think in the past since it was more private, there's like a special connection because nowadays you don't see the masks that were used in the past. It's a little bit sad not to see those masks.
Jose took me to a small museum next to the house. He showed me a moody painting of a man with long hair, wearing a loincloth and holding a spear.
Like a warrior figure or something?
Correct. We have Quasran, that is the most important legend for us because Quasran was a Boruca warrior who fought against the Spanish people, Quasran.
So he would have actually fought in the battle that the festival celebrates.
Correct. He was the one who led the fight, but at the end he escaped and he moved to the mountain. So that's why here Boruca there is a mountain that we call El Cerro de Quasran because Quasran didn't die. He just ran away, and now he died in the mountain, and his spirit is there.
I paid $75 a night to stay in the house where I met Jose. It seemed like my host family relocated one of their girls for a few nights. There were little dresses hung up in my room and school books on shelves. I bashed a cockroach with my muddy hiking shoe, then went to sleep. I woke early, and it wasn't long before I heard the devils. I followed the sound uphill. The devils had congregated on a grassy, leaf-strewn patch outside a house. There was a table in front of the house, with a framed photo of an elderly person's face propped up on it, next to a vase of flowers. One of the devils read out a tribute. It's tradition for the procession to visit the homes of villagers who've died in the past year to pay respect. After the tribute, the music began again, and a man in a bird mask began chasing the bull. The bull nailed Birdman, and they both tumbled to the ground. One of the men in the procession had long, colourful tassels flowing from his waist, and from his wooden staff. The man's mask depicted a huge boar head, with 4 thick tusks. I asked him about the importance of the rituals.
Is the heart of the community. So it's a part of the culture. It says that we are still here.
His name was Christian Gonzalez Gomez. Christian told me that his grandfather was Don Ismael, who started the mask-making school in Boruca and helped revive the mask tradition.
So it's the resistance of our culture against the modern ways to live here in this world.
He told me that now, in the Dance of the Little Devils, the bull represents not just the Spanish invaders, but anything that threatens Borucan identity.
The bull is the Spanish, but the bull right now, we interpret that it was something that is bad with my culture. It was the government, the system, not just the Spanish. It's other things that's always clash with my culture.
By the 1950s, Boruca village had become more connected to the outside world because the Costa Rica section of the huge Pan-American highway had been built. But Christians said that authorities didn't bother to properly consult indigenous people about the highway, despite it being built on indigenous land.
When that street was building, it across of indigenous territory and cut into the territory. And no one asked if the people was okay with that.
It wasn't all bad. Better roads meant that Borucan villagers had better access to things like supermarkets and healthcare.
Boruca people got more connection with health services like ambulance. Someone in the bite of a serpent or a snake was more easy to go to a hospital.
Christian said that the flip side was the gradual erosion of traditional Borucan practices, such as using natural medicine. Also, because villagers could get to more shops, around the 1980s they started buying cheap plastic masks and wearing them for the Dance of the Little Devils.
Batman mask, Spider-Man mask, Hulk mask. That was a mask.
Christian's grandfather, Don Ismail, helped put a stop to the plastic mask influx when he started his wooden mask making school.
The people was losing the knowledge of how to do masks in wood. And my grandpa said, no, I don't want that. So I have to do a little school. And thanks of that motivation, everybody knows how to do mask in wood. So now, if you use a plastic mask or mask of other thing that is not our context, you can't participate in our dance.
Better roads also allowed tourists to get to Boruca village, and the colourful Borucan masks were a popular draw for visitors. There still aren't any proper hotels or restaurants in the village, but you can visit homestays for mask making or weaving classes. I'd say there were around 1,000 visitors in total in the village when I went to see the rituals. Most were Costa Ricans, and many seemed to be villagers' friends and family, rather than tourists with no link to the place, like me. The devils seemed spurred on by having an audience, dancing more manically as crowds gathered. Christian said that more people visiting Boruca was a good thing, as long as it didn't impinge on the culture there. He said that in the 1980s, senior figures in the village built a bullfighting ring there, in an attempt to attract more tourist dollars. A group of women in the village objected.
The women get mad and they destroy that Coliseum. So that's the signal of they are not agree with something that is not about our culture.
Bullfighting was brought to Costa Rica by the Spanish colonisers. Christian said that if tourists are going to come to Boruca, they should see genuine Borucan culture, not events that have nothing to do with the village's history.
And the people say, no, we are different. We have to preserve our ritual, use the ritual, nothing more.
Tourists, and of course the money they bring, did seem to be generally welcomed in Boruca. As the visitors followed the devils and the bull, they kept a respectful distance and didn't try to join in with the dances or anything cringy like that. But Christian said that some older villagers still wistfully think back to decades ago when the Dance of the Little Devils was just for the Borucan community. He said that during the COVID pandemic, travel restrictions meant that no outsiders came to the rituals at all.
But it was so interesting because we visited the elders and the elders said, thank you guys, because it looks like when I was a kid, no one follows the ceremony. It's just us, just our country, no one more. Wow. So that feels like that.
On the last day of the rituals, the devils and the bull gathered in the village square, surrounded by onlookers. Devils poured each other shots of chicha, a traditional alcoholic corn drink, then sprinted around the bull with booze-filled vigour, kicking up dust as they ran. A group of shirtless men wearing skull masks, their upper bodies completely covered in blue and green paint, marched to the square to join the dance. As night fell, the procession moved downhill through the village and congregated around a bonfire. It was the climax of the rituals, and once again, the Borucan devils had vanquished the Spanish bull. The bull costume was chucked onto the bonfire, where its brown rags slowly became engulfed by flames. The crowd cheered as drunk devils hit the burning bull with sticks. Finally, the frame of the bull costume collapsed, and its wood became just another part of the crackling bonfire.
So this ceremony is a performance.
Christian, the guy in the boar mask, said it's not tradition in the village to write down stories. In Boruca, you explain your history through performance instead.
This performance count you how we was born, how we have that first contact with the Spaniards, how we fight, how we die, and how we reborn. So this ceremony is our history.
Okay, that was the first episode of Keep Going, an unexpected travel podcast. If you want to visit Boruca village, there's some information in the episode notes that'll help you do that. As I mentioned at the start, this podcast will come out every 2 weeks, at the start of its life at least. So subscribe if you want to get episodes as they're released. See you next time, alright?